Starting off with the jacket, I'm taking this white hoodie, which I was super lucky to find. I've marked exactly where I want my hem to be, and I'm just gonna go right across and cut it right there. I'm taking a little dab of super glue, putting it on the zipper so it doesn't separate. Taking my pliers, I want to press real hard until it cuts in half. And I am actually going to take in this jacket a bit more so it fits even tighter, taking in the side seams and the back. For the trim, I suggest using a stretch fabric, but for this video, I'm going to be using some cotton cut on the bias, which gives me a little bit of stretch. For the bottom band, you want to measure all the way around and add some seam allowance. Then fold the seam allowance over with an iron. Once you've stitched your band and created a full circle, you want to pin it to the wrong side of the jacket. This is going to hide your stitching and help keep the raw edges from fraying all over the place. After you've stitched it, you want to turn your jacket right side out and top stitch the band down with the zigzag stitch. The zigzag is going to help your fabric be able to stretch, and therefore you will be able to get it over your head. The sleeves are a similar process, just a lot less complicated. So you just mark where you want it to end, you cut out a red band and top stitch it into place with your zigzag stitch. If your hoodie comes with these strings right there, then just save them for the DIY backpack that I'm going to post really soon. And when it goes live, I'll put the link down below. For the neckband, I'm going to cut the fabric on the bias, which is cutting the fabric on the diagonal where it's the stretchiest. So you trace around the collar and you leave some seam allowance all around. Now it's time to press up the edges using your iron, and what you can do is actually put some notches into the curves, and that'll help really get it around those tight corners. Making sure my midpoints match up, I'm going to just pin the whole collar onto the wrong side of my jacket. And this is really similar to how we did the hem before. You just want to pin it up, stitch it with a zigzag, of course, and then pin the rest of the collar down, and then you're going to top stitch it with another zigzag. And I'm going to be using a lot of pins for this just to make sure it's secure and it's easier to stitch. Now, after trying on the jacket, I realized that I wanted the top part to show way more of the romper, so I simply folded it back and tacked it into place. And when you're done, you should have something that looks just like this! Beautiful, and of course in your custom colors. Next up on my list is the romper, which seems complicated, but really, we're just getting a tank top and some shorts that fit us really well, marking where they meet up, and this is how we're going to create our pattern. So take some newspaper / advertisement paper and start making your pattern using the seams that are on the shorts. Here I've created my front piece, and I'm going to label it front and add SS for side seams so that I know exactly how to place this pattern. And you want to do the same thing to one of the back pieces. I'm going to be using this really rich, beautiful blue fabric to do my romper. And I want to put the pieces onto the fabric. I want to trace around it with some chalk. Make sure you label it correctly. Leave a ½ inch seam allowance all around, and flip your pattern pieces to the other side and do the same thing. So now you have two mirrored pattern pieces. It should look like this. I ended up adding some interfacing because I thought I would need the extra support, but I came to find that it wasn't necessary, so ignore it, it never happened. Moving on. Bring together a front and back piece and stitch up the side seams so you get something that looks like this. Then bring it together and stitch up that inner leg, like that crotch area kind of. And you should have something like this. Then you want to bring those two pieces together right along that crotch going up the back seam, okay? And it should look like a U. And when you're done, you should have a glorious pair of shorts minus the little cat legs. Oh my god, and then I saw these donuts and I was like, I really want donuts right now! But there wasn't any. So Instead, I had to trace around the tank top like so, giving myself a higher front there so it could show underneath that jacket. Alright, so you create a front piece, you create a back piece, alright, you make sure you stop where you put your pins, you make sure you label everything right, and bam, pattern pieces. Put it on that fabric, trace around it, cut it out, leave that seam allowance. Put them together, stitch up those side seams. Now it's time to put them together. So you make sure that you've got your right sides together, and what I suggest here is when you match up those edges to put safety pins and actually try it on. Make sure it fits real well. That's why you leave extra seam allowance just in case you're like, oh my god, this thing is way too tight. Once you're done with that, you want to hem up the top of your tank top, and you do this just by folding in that seam allowance and top stitching it with another zigzag. Next, you want to add your straps. Here I'm using elastic because it's more comfortable, it's easy. You just double stitch that on for security and you're done. Another sewing lesson of the day, do not hem up your shorts like I did. Just cut them right where you want it because we'll be adding bias tape later. I'll show you how it goes. But yeah, don't waste your time doing this. To make those beautiful circular appliques, we're going to be using circles of various sizes, tracing them onto some white spandex fabric, and cutting them out. If yours looks something like this, then you are right on target. Moving on, you want to adjust your shorts so they are perfectly flat to lay on your applique. Cut your applique in half and then position it right where you want it. Take it to that sewing machine and you want to zigzag that edge. Zigzag again. Now it's time for that fancy border called bias tape. Ooh, yes. This is what I mentioned earlier. You just want to put it on there and top stitch it with a straight stitch. I know, not a zigzag stitch. Now this part is for you overachievers out there. If you want to do that little design on the romper, you can, but you don't have to. To paint the design on, I'm using this Deco fabric marker, but before I do that permanently, I am taking my chalk and sketching out the pattern that I want. I have also tried this on my body and made sure that it looks right, the proportions are fine, I've adjusted the lines, and then I go in with the paint marker and I actually go over my lines, darken them, add some shading here and there, thicken up those lines, and make it look just real good. The next thing we're going to be working on are black leggings, okay? So you want to get a pair, and we're going to cut down the sides of the legs, and this is where we're going to put those blue inserts. So once you've got both legs sliced down the side, and you want to double up that blue fabric, this blue fabric is the same one that I used for the romper. You want to make sure that this strip is as long as your entire legging. You're going to add some seam allowance, cut it out so you get something that looks like this. You've got two now. And you want to start pinning it to your leggings. So make sure you've got those right sides together and pin up that leg. And because it's easier, I recommend you stitch it and then pin up the other side of the strip. Ooh, your leggings are looking real good now. So all that's left is to do that blue band at the bottom. Cut off a piece. My leggings had like a stiff blue band, but now I'm going to make my own, just folding some blue fabric in half, stitching it up to create that band, which is kind of how we did the sleeve before. And then you just want to stitch around that entrance there. And bam! You got yourself beautiful leggings. Our next project is going to be my favorite accessory, which is the belt. And we're using some gray craft foam, making sure we cut these 2-inch strips. And we're going to merge them together using some hot glue and a piece of fabric to make sure that it's really secure. And next I'm going to be cutting out these 2 circles. I'm stacking these 2 together because it gives the belt way more definition and it just makes it look a lot stiffer and more realistic, which is what you're going for. So next you want to cut out these white pieces, which are half the size of your gray ones. Glue one side of the belt piece to that circular piece, and on the other side we're going to be making that buckle looking thing. So to give this side more dimension, I'm using a slightly lighter gray. for that little strip right there, and then I'm sticking that to this trapezoid looking thing. To take the belt on and off, we're going to be using this stick-on Velcro. The Pokeball insignia is really easy. I'm simply taking some red felt, cutting out some circles, and just gluing it onto the belt. And then you're done. Sewing lesson number 3. I should have used a blue hat instead of a black one that I got, because blue is the main color of my hat. So don't be like me, get the main color straight off the bat so you don't have to use a ton of fabric. For the front of the hat, you can use any white stretch fabric that you have. Here I'm just creating a pattern piece by tracing around the seams of the front of the hat, and then I'm putting that onto more fabric, cutting that out, and then gluing that one. This is the part that I was telling you that you should avoid. If you had just bought a blue hat, Maylin, you would not be wrestling through this process. But in the end, it came out so beautiful. Check that hat out. Now guys, this is a good lesson in it doesn't matter how you get there, you just gotta get there. Alright guys? Use some craft foam to cut out that Pokeball insignia and you are done. Look at how good that hat looks.
Wild dog. Yeah.